Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. This week we're going to be working on a 4-color swipe, beginning with some metallic silver. I love this silver. It's quite bright and of all things shiny, right? So I love this silver because it's going to be my predominant color I'm looking forward to swipe with at the very top of this particular pour. Now I also choose the metallic silver as my swipe color because I've done white like 1,000 times before in multiple swipes prior. And also thinking that the silver may be a good contrast with this Phthalo Blue. Now both colors have a ton of metallic properties which help each other with lacing and cell effects, which is my goal here. And now I also wanted to go with a bit of a thinner bead of blue, although this looks kind of thick after I watch it back. In comparison to the silver, I wanted a much thinner bead of blue. Again, the phthalo is quite dark, so I knew it would spread quite far in my swipe altogether. Doing a bit of torching here, popping any air bubbles, which may have been from my stirring prior. And here's a very cool color, the Light Magenta. It is much like a bright pink, but not quite as bubblegummy, if that makes any sense. So this color was my first try with the Light Magenta, and I found to be a really nice color. I think I'll use a few more times going forward and a few more experiments and some trials. Now I also used the Light Magenta as my third color because I wanted a bit of pop in this swipe. I have my lighter silver, darker blue, and I wanted a brighter color to kind of complement the rest, which I hope will pop through later on in after my swipe. And again, just with a small little torch to pop any air bubbles which may have formed when I was stirring or dumping the paint onto the canvas. Leading into my last color, our favorite titanium white by Artist Loft, which I use quite often. This will be my color that I know I'm going to lose the most of, but I needed a fourth color to basically tailor off the pour. So again, I choose a white most of the time to use as my trail color, we'll call it, and not to waste any kind of blacks or blues that will come in handy for later pours. So this is going to be, again, a color that just kind of falls off the edge here with my swipe, but also allows for the first 3 colors to spread evenly. Okay, and here's my cell activator, my Amsterdam white, which I use exclusively for cell activation and nothing more. So I use a combination of 2/3 paint to 1/3 Floetrol to make my cell activating paint mixture. So that's my ratio I use, and this was actually incredibly thick compared to most times I've used it, so I was quite patient with how slowly it poured out of my cup, but ultimately I find that combination works real well for my swipes. Okay, so I get often asked, what is this tool I use for my swipes? Well, this is a shelf liner used for keeping your pots and pans in place in your cupboard. So ultimately it works well for a swipe tool because it's rubbery and has a good grip to it, so it's pulling that paint across the canvas quite well and even. That's my ultimate goal here, is to keep my paint even across the canvas all the way. As you can see, our silver leading into our phthalo across that Light Magenta, making a really cool swipe color. Now every week I do have a teachable moment I use from experience which comes in handy. So I am notorious for not letting paint rest and just do its thing, whether it's cell activation, lacing, or whatnot. So I waited a good 5 minutes when my swipe was over to make sure that cells had opened up and also lacing had kind of formed before I began to tilt. I've lost a lot of contrast and colors from just tilting too soon. So I find that if you hang out and just wait just a few minutes, let your activation do its thing and go from there, you'll get a better result. Now I decided off the initial pattern I got from my colors that I wasn't going to dawdle around, and I wanted to get a nice color and blend going right away. So I wound up tilting fairly aggressively off the beginning there with both my colors, or both my corners, sorry, and getting that paint back into the middle of the canvas, making sure that it's as centered as I can make it before trying to balance out those colors. And now one thing I am noticing in the look back on the video is that there's a lot of silver really hanging out for quite a long time, which I really like because I wanted it to be pulled as far down the canvas as possible to spread that lacing again as far as possible on top of the blue plus the magenta. Now my plan here was to kind of eliminate the white cell activating Amsterdam, which is my cell activating color, but not necessary for the actual pour itself. So I typically get rid of that white in the corners, which begins to kind of mess or monkey with a plan in my brain of how I want this pattern to look. Now it did become a bit off-centered, which is really okay because I found that as you can see, the magenta is beginning to pull through in the top there, and it's a bit off-center, but really I don't mind that it turned out to be about a 1/3, 2/3 split between the magenta coming through and the silver coming through on the opposite side. Now if you have made it this far in the video, thank you for sticking around, I appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the like button to help the video spread to more people who may enjoy this content plus this kind of video of paint pouring, learning to pour, pouring tutorials, those who may be new. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below and I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have. But also, what do you guys think of this swipe? I really enjoy this silver swipe. I like how it pulled the lacing through the phthalo and the magenta, making some really cool lightning patterns that aren't white. That was my goal. Get some lacing, but the least amount of white as possible, which is why again I use silver as my swipe color. So again, leave your comments on what you guys thought below, just so I can get some feedback on how you guys may have thought I did. I do appreciate the feedback either way, it makes me better each week. And as we go in for a bit of an overhead look of the really cool color combinations from the magenta up to the phthalo into the silver, I love the lacing look that this pour gave us. It was really neat to see that silver react the way it did. I'd hoped that it gave us a nice lacing. I think that we accomplished the goal that I had set out for ultimately, and I am really happy with how this pour turned out. And again, any feedback on this pour is really appreciated, so thank you. Also, if you have enjoyed this video, please consider clicking this next playlist up in the corner for a few more swipes I've done in the past, which you may enjoy. And we will see you again in the next one.